Hello, my name is Ingrid Boudet, and I'm founder of No More Noise Toronto. And this is a presentation that is an outcome of the strategy session that we had on Saturday, May 18th. We had a number of people attend, and thank you so much if you were one of those. We had a great discussion, and so I've updated the deck a little bit, and I'm here to share it with you and everybody else who is interested. So let me get to sharing my screen. And let's get started. So what I've learned about us, I've learned that there are lots of us, actually. When I first started I was like, am I the only one who is annoyed by noise? The answer is no. The difference is that we're not organized, and we are generally working to counter the organized forces around us. And whether that's the fireworks people, club owners, the motor vehicle culture, and party boats, let's say, eating and drinking establishments. We need to organize, because otherwise we are just these random little pockets of people. And by organizing, we will actually have a greater representation and a more accurate representation of how many people noise impacts. And there are lots of disturbing noise sources. I get lots of emails about all kinds of noise sources. And we also have a very individual relationship to sound and noise. So noise is defined as unwanted and or harmful sound. And what drives one person bonkers just slides off the back of another person. So what I'm learning is that I need to target my communications so that you are only getting the information you need regarding your noise sources that bother you. So I've also learned that noise is an issue many haven't considered. We've been told for decades that you'll get used to it, and that noise is a sound of a growing economy, and it's a good sign. And the answer is no, it's not. We now have ways that we don't need to make noise necessarily. There's electric engines and electric garbage trucks and all that kind of stuff, and electric construction equipment. And also our cities have gotten louder, and that's a problem for many people, including just regular people who want to sleep at night. So the public needs to be educated about the health impacts about noise. We've now had longitudinal studies and decades of research that show that noise impacts our health, both mentally and physically. So there's an equity aspect to noise that many people don't understand. My hot doc of Do You Hear What I Hear features Daniela Levy-Pinto, who is a pedestrian advocate who happens to be blind. And sound noise muffles the cues that she needs to navigate. And so that doesn't help her have accessible and safe journeys. And it also impacts other people that have had brain injuries. People that live on arterial roads tend to be more marginalized populations, and arterial roads tend to be some of the loudest places that I've studied and that I've measured. So there's an equity aspect to noise that people don't understand. And I've learned that we need to be active and participate in the public process. I thought when I started this, when I created the Not 311 Noise Report, I thought that people were that the city was going to be like, oh, she's poking fingers, and that it wouldn't be welcome. Well, it actually is, because unless we speak up, it's very hard for the city to make change, and the councillors don't know what's important. So we need to be active and participate in the civic process. And I've also learned that we're all busy. I mean, I need to be efficient and focused, and that's what we need to be and we need to work together for the common goal of reducing noise pollution. Noise in cities, this is a new old problem. So noise has always been around, and it was declared a health hazard back in the 70s, but we are getting louder, and cities all over the world are grappling with these issues. And the problem is that the soundscape is changing faster than the bylaws are. And that is also very true when it comes to electric vehicles. So we need to be vigilant on that. So we need to influence city council members, boards of health, city staff for local relief. There is nothing like you talking to your own councillors and showing up, and either it's sometimes called delegating, sometimes it's called deputing, but it's basically speaking to committees. They need to hear from you, and they need to hear your noise story. And so I learned that our actions are welcomed. As I said earlier, councillors in the city, I've listed Toronto divisions, City of Toronto divisions there. They need us to speak up, and they welcome it. But but we need to speak up and then come with a collaborative approach and show data. The expression is that if you don't have data, then all you have is an opinion. And that's where many people who were suffering from noise disturbances and it was impacting their health, it was just like, oh, well, that's just an opinion. Well, now with measurements and data, like the noise spikes that you see behind me in my background, that is data and that shows how bad it is. So we're able to have a much stronger argument now through data collection. The cities are often using very old software. So the processes are broken. There's no cohesion across, there's no transmission across different divisions. How it goes from 311 to municipal licensing and standards, or from 311 to Toronto Police Services. That is broken finally. And it's not actually, I don't attribute the city as to negligence or anything like that. This is using old software, which is reducing our ability to report noise. In Toronto, Gary York, the executive director of 311, is implementing Salesforce as the 311 software. And I think that's a huge opportunity for Toronto to really make some great workflows and business processes so that we are able to report all noise reports at all time, and then they can also filter them out as for ones that are allowed and not allowed at certain times of day. So the inadequate bylaws also make it hard for enforcement. They need to use technology and not rely on noise reports to understand where there's problems. And that applies to both bylaw and TPS. And resourcing reduces their abilities to respond. Many of our cities are cash starved, and so people are expensive, and so is technology, but technology has greater usefulness over time. So for noise regulations, well, there's municipal, provincial, and federal. And by us acting locally is our greatest opportunity for local change and personal relief. I've been hearing sounds of summer since January. So I really would like some personal relief from motor vehicle noise. Then provincially, so that's where that leads, is provincially, because all roads in at least Ontario are managed by the province and the Highway Traffic Act. So we need to ask for permission from the province for noise cameras, for sound level monitoring, for community safety zones. All of that is granted by the province. So we're going to need to petition for them. And then they also manage the sirens and backup beepers protocols. So if we want to understand how sirens are used and why they're used at 3 o'clock in the morning when there's very few cars on the street, that's where we need to go. And then federally, there's aircraft or aviation noise, rail, and then there's also marine noise. Ports Toronto recently had a webinar, and I believe they said that federally, they are actually reviewing the noise standards. And I don't think that there actually are noise limitations on the water right now, which boggles my mind. But when you think about it, noise is a new old problem. And so they didn't think it was a problem before, but we have much greater amplification now and portable amplification, which is making a difference. So I have created a Google Sheet, and in the comments below, there is a link to a Google Sheet and a video that I have made walking through how that looks. And I'm just going to quickly bring it over here. So this is what it looks like. Sometimes I think in Excel. So basically, I've got two sections, one on No More Noise Toronto, the other one on the interest groups that we are working with or should focus on. And I talk about the focus, relationship, proposed actions, 6-month goals, and longer term goals. So if that's of interest to you, please have a look at the sheet or watch the video. There will be a link here for the video of this video. So the spreadsheet, I just covered how that's organized. Yeah, so that's where I'm looking for feedback. All of that is draft. So how do we move forward as No More Noise Toronto? First of all, we need to educate the public and ourselves. People don't understand the health impacts of noise, and they don't understand that there are many of us. And so the more we get together, the more we gather, the more we connect, the stronger we are. And so we need to first find those interested people and then empower those people. I personally think that convincing the noisemakers not to make noise is pretty much useless. Education might get a few of them, but many of them have intentionally done that. And whatever their motivation may be, I'm not interested in trying to convince them to do otherwise. I would like to find more of us and then provide ways for us to come together. And you need to tell your own story. I can't tell an amplified sound story because amplified sound isn't in my soundscape. That bothers me. So somehow people need to become more comfortable in telling their own story. And what I've learned is that there's a spectrum of engagement. And that is where it starts by people passively watching and learning. And many people have come onto my webinars. They've never said anything. They've never turned on their camera, but they've consistently come. So they're passively watching and learning. That is just fine by me. Then the next step of that is actually submitting data, possibly a noise report, or completing some of the surveys that I send out, because I want to learn more about you. And then I want to share those learnings with all of those other jurisdictions and use that to advocate for noise reduction. The next one is sending form emails. We create campaigns through New Mode for initiatives that the city is putting forward so that you can have your say in that. And literally you can enter your first name, last name, email address, and postal code. And that will then find your own counselor. And by you hitting add your voice, then you're sending about, anywhere from 7 to 10 to 15 emails into email boxes, inboxes, I should say. You can also edit those letters. So you can just hit add your voice and off it goes. It'll read just fine. But you can also add your own story. And I really encourage people to do that. You can also send your very own email, which is extremely impactful because not many people will actually do that. So if you do that, kudos to you. And then finally, we've got the last two, which is more in person, which is addressing committees. So that's back to the deputations or delegations, where you tell these people in person or online, well, many times that can happen virtually, how noise impacts you. And when they see that, when they see the expression, the tenseness, that actually is great because it shares with them the pain and the suffering that you and I are going through. And then, so from addressing committees, the next thing that I'm looking for is I'm calling it leadership roles. I'm not sure that's really the right term for it, but I'm looking for people. I can't be the expert in everything. I can't be the expert in construction, amplified sound, motor vehicle noise. So I'm looking for people to literally join these task forces and working groups and subject matter experts, so that I can ask that subject matter expert for clarification, possibly before I, let's say, go to the media. But you can also then share your knowledge with others that care about that same noise source. So again, this is all funneling down to that noise source. And so then finally, we also need to grow the membership base in Toronto and beyond. I have followers across the country and also down in the States. So there is appetite for moving this ahead. So what we need to work on, well, we finally got our logo. I hope you like it. It was really hard coming up with a logo of health and heart and sound and protection and all of that. So I hope you like that. We've got colors. So we're now I feel like I'm able to start going out and building the membership base. We have a brand. And so we need to get that out. We need to get out into the inner suburbs of Toronto. That's where the Toronto Public Library speaking tour that I'm looking at doing in the fall is in the works. I'd love to attend community events, but I need to know from you when there is a community event. And then I can bring a banner, I can bring materials, all that kind of stuff, but I also need you to be there. I do not want to be alone at the table because there's many people who are going to be angry about this. And and also there's many people that are interested in it. So it's on both sides. So it's always nice to share a table with someone. Social media is how people stay informed. It's not necessarily how new members are acquired, but social media is not one of my favorite things. So it's something I continue to work on. And we also need to build our membership base out of province and throughout the country and out of the country. We need stable funding. We're currently thinking right now, we're just grassroots. This is just a bunch of people coming together, but do we incorporate as a not-for-profit or as a for-profit and funnel the profits back into the company? Do we do it now or later? What are the pros and cons? I'm not quite sure about all of that. There's other ways to get sponsorships through funding, United Way, family foundations, that kind of things. There is money out there. It's just a matter of how to get that. As I say, my time, I don't get paid for my time. But I would like my expenses to be covered. And so that includes the website, that includes MailChimp and Zoom licenses and Eventbrite and New Mode and all of those things. And my run rate is about $1,500 a month right now. So, and we need a structure for people to support the cause. So those members, we need funding to keep going. And then we need a structure for people like you to find a place that is comfortable for you to support. So that's going back to the subject matter experts. I'm looking for that for vehicles, for laws, for stationary noise sources, for amplified sound, construction, etc. And the way I see working groups and task forces, working groups should solve ongoing noise issues like construction. Construction is always going to happen. The context might be different. And so that's where we can be like basically an advisory board to, let's say, a community that's suddenly having 4 different construction developments going on. And how do they manage that? Maybe we can assist them. Task forces are a goal with an end date. Have a goal with an end date. So vehicle noise, sirens and beepers, amplified sound, and waste collection. I see all of those as we can establish a very clear goal and then work towards that goal. Some of them might be a few years in development. Amplified sound, we could possibly fix that very quickly, at least in Toronto. So how far can No More Noise go? We have a great opportunity here in Toronto. We just had the noise bylaw review. Part of that review, the councillors put forward that they need to work with community groups, and they mentioned No More Noise Toronto a number of times. So we have this window where we can collaborate with the city. We can collaborate with TPS. We can collaborate with Toronto Public Health. And really, due to many of the other, so the external things that are happening is we're changing over to electric vehicles. So that's an opportunity to reduce noise in the city. And also climate change. Any vehicle modification increases emissions. So the more, anyways, I'll stop there. So we have the opportunity to be a world leader in reducing noise pollution. And then we can also have other chapters in other cities. I do have the domain nomorenoise.ca. And so maybe that's where we dropped the Toronto piece. And we actually do nomorenoise.ca, and we develop a website along that, or just move it over to No More Noise Toronto, depending on. But we can certainly have, I've been approached by other cities on how we're doing what we're doing. So we can build on our knowledge that we've learned in Toronto and then go after provincial and federal changes. And create a toolkit for others. So that's kind of where other cities are going, we need help. How are you doing this? And so maybe we can create that toolkit and help other jurisdictions reduce noise in their community. And lastly, the Not 311 noise report is going to probably change to a community noise report. There are many jurisdictions that don't have noise reporting mechanisms, small cities, that kind of thing. And people are people. There's noisemakers, and then there's people suffering from those noisemakers. So we can launch this across Canada and into the US. The software is actually global. So that's an interesting opportunity. And then that will be open data so that jurisdictions can then use that to advocate for better noise bylaws and better laws in general. So the next steps for No More Noise is in the next month, I want to understand you better, our membership. So there's going to be some more questions in the next newsletter. I hope you answer those, because that will help me communicate relevant information to you. So that's creating that, streamlining those communications to your noise sources. And we also want to focus on Toronto Public Health strategic priorities to include noise. And then in the next 2 to 6 months, we've got summer in the way. Any of us have vacations, so we're going to continue to hold No More Noise meetups for strategy discussions and different noise sources. We're going to create the task forces and working groups, and I'd really like to develop an accommodating and inclusive framework to work together for that. I think that we can develop a way that as groups and task forces, it's not onerous, it's efficient, and hopefully achieves great success. So finally, I just want to say thank you. This has been an organic process right from the beginning. When I started this, I had no idea. I had no idea if I was the only one. It turns out I'm not. And so I have now found you, and we have found us. And there's a bunch of us. So I thank you for your belief in the cause and your support of my efforts. So let's see what we can do together. Have a great day, and thank you for your attention. And visit nomoreNoiseToronto.com.